The impossible crisis. For centuries, the Galactic Coalition had believed itself prepared for anything. Across thousands of star systems, the alliance of intelligent species had survived wars, supernovae, rogue black holes, and even encounters with remnants of long-extinct civilizations. Their technology spanned galaxies. Their knowledge of the cosmos stretched deep into the laws of physics themselves. Yet on that quiet cycle in the Perseus arm, they encountered something that none of them had ever faced before. Something impossible. The first alarm came from an automated observatory orbiting a dim yellow star known as Kepler 992. The station detected a sudden and massive shift in stellar energy output. At first, astronomers assumed it was a natural fluctuation, but the readings continued to worsen. Within minutes, the star's energy output began to drop rapidly. Entire streams of stellar plasma were being drawn away from the star itself, not by gravity, not by any known force, but by something artificial. The observatory's sensors traced the energy drain to an enormous structure that had appeared near the star. It was unlike anything in the Coalition's records. A colossal ring, thousands of kilometers wide, constructed from dark metallic segments that constantly shifted and rearranged themselves. Bright arcs of energy raced along its surface like lightning trapped inside a machine. And, at the center of the ring, the star was slowly being drained. Within hours, the Coalition declared a Level 1 galactic emergency. Fleets from nearby systems rushed toward the anomaly, while scientists across hundreds of worlds analyzed every fragment of data. The structure was soon given a name that spread quickly through the galactic networks: the Oblivion Engine. At first, some believed it was a weapon. Others feared it might be a failed experiment left behind by a long-dead civilization. But as more information arrived, the truth became far more terrifying. The engine was not simply draining a star. It was building something. Energy collected from the star was being channeled through the machine's vast internal network, creating immense gravitational distortions in the surrounding region of space. Nearby planets began experiencing strange orbital shifts. Space itself seemed to ripple and twist. And then the countdown appeared. It was detected within the machine's repeating signal pattern, an enormous sequence of pulses echoing through the electromagnetic spectrum. Coalition linguists and mathematicians worked feverishly to decode it. When they finally succeeded, the result sent shockwaves through the entire alliance. The signal represented time, and it was counting down. 24 hours. If the sequence reached 0, the engine would complete its process. No one knew exactly what would happen, but the simulations were grim. If the gravitational distortions continued to grow, they could trigger a collapse of spacetime across the surrounding systems, potentially destroying hundreds of star systems in a cascading chain reaction. The Coalition's greatest minds gathered on the central diplomatic station, Aurelia Prime. Representatives of dozens of species filled the massive circular council chamber. Holographic displays projected the terrifying image of the engine above them. The Vorlons, known for their unparalleled theoretical physics, attempted to analyze the machine structure. The Kithari, masters of energy engineering, tried to disrupt the power channels feeding the system. The Zelnath, whose ancient civilization had once uncovered countless alien relics, searched their archives for any mention of similar technology. Every effort failed. The machine ignored all attempts at interference. Several probes sent toward the structure were instantly destroyed by violent energy discharges. Even approaching the device was dangerous. Hours passed, then more hours, and the countdown continued. 20 hours remaining. Inside the council chamber, tension grew heavier with each passing moment. Many of the older civilizations recognized the architecture of the engine's design. It resembled fragments of technology occasionally discovered in ancient ruins scattered across the galaxy, artifacts belonging to a mysterious extinct race known only as the Architects. The Architects had vanished millions of years ago, leaving behind technology so advanced that even the oldest species struggled to understand it. If the Oblivion Engine truly came from them, then the Coalition might be facing a machine built by minds far beyond their comprehension. 19 hours remaining. Desperation began to spread. Fleet commanders suggested destroying the structure with concentrated firepower. But the simulations were clear. If the engine were damaged improperly, the energy it had already collected could release all at once, triggering the very catastrophe they hoped to prevent. They could not shut it down. They could not destroy it. And they did not understand it. The chamber fell silent as the reality settled in. For the first time in its history, the Galactic Coalition had encountered a problem that none of its member species could solve. Then a quiet voice spoke from the outer ring of delegates. Perhaps, the voice said carefully, we should contact the humans. The reaction was immediate. Several delegates turned in disbelief. Others made sounds of skepticism or outright laughter. Humans? They were one of the youngest members of the coalition. Barely a century had passed since their first contact with alien civilization. Compared to ancient species with tens of thousands of years of interstellar history, humanity was practically an infant. Their technology was respectable but hardly revolutionary. Their political influence was minimal. But humans had developed a strange reputation across the galaxy. They were reckless, curious to the point of danger, and they possessed a peculiar tendency to solve problems in ways that no other species would even consider attempting. Some called it creativity. Others called it madness. 17 hours remained on the countdown. The council debated fiercely. Eventually, faced with the looming catastrophe, they reached a reluctant decision. A message would be sent to Earth. A simple distress call. The request for assistance traveled across the stars at the speed of the Coalition's fastest communication network. Most delegates expected no response, or perhaps a polite message expressing regret. Instead, a reply arrived within minutes. Humanity would send a team. Not an army, not a fleet, just a small experimental vessel carrying a handful of engineers and scientists. Estimated arrival time, 8 hours. As the council chamber studied the message, uncertainty filled the room. No one knew whether to feel hopeful or terrified. Because if humans truly intended to interfere with a machine built by the ancient architects, then the next 24 hours might change the fate of the entire galaxy. The human method, the arrival of the human vessel, surprised everyone. Most coalition ships were massive constructions, vast cruisers and research platforms stretching kilometers in length. Their designs favored stability, redundancy, and overwhelming power. The human ship was none of those things. It was small, compact, barely the size of a coalition cargo shuttle. The hull was sleek and angular, marked with burn scars from high-speed travel. Its engines glowed faintly blue as it dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the restricted zone surrounding the Oblivion Engine. The ship's name appeared on the Coalition sensors. Horizon Runner. Observers across the Coalition fleet watched carefully as the vessel approached the research station orbiting the dying star. The enormous silhouette of the Oblivion Engine loomed in the distance, its metallic rings slowly shifting as energy streams pulsed across its surface. Even from far away, the machine radiated immense power. Within minutes, the Horizon Runner docked with the station. The human team arrived without ceremony. 5 people stepped onto the station's main research deck: engineers, scientists, and 1 pilot. Compared to the dozens of alien specialists already present, their team looked almost absurdly small. The leader introduced herself simply. Dr. Elena Ward, she said, systems engineer. The coalition scientists quickly escorted the humans to the central observation chamber, where the engine filled the view outside the massive windows. Towering holographic displays projected decades of research data collected by the coalition. One of the Zelnath researchers began explaining everything they knew. For nearly an hour, the alien scientists described their findings: energy patterns, structural scans, failed shutdown attempts, destroyed probes, and countless theoretical models. The humans listened quietly. Dr. Ward studied the displays while the other humans examined the data tablets handed to them. When the explanation finally ended, the room fell silent. Everyone waited for the human response. Dr. Ward glanced at the timer projected in the corner of the display. 15 hours remained. She looked back at the alien scientists and asked a single question. Why are you trying to shut it down? The reaction was immediate. The Kithari engineer blinked in confusion. Because it is draining the star, he replied. If it completes its function, the resulting gravitational distortion may destroy hundreds of systems. Yes, Ward said calmly, but that assumes the machine is malfunctioning. Several scientists exchanged uncertain looks. It is clearly malfunctioning, one of the Vorlon physicists insisted. No rational design would behave in such a destructive manner. Ward tilted her head slightly. Are you sure? She gestured toward the holographic projection of the engine. This thing was built by a civilization millions of years ahead of us. And your first assumption is that they built a doomsday machine that just turned itself on. No one answered. Ward continued. You're treating it like a bomb that needs to be disarmed. But what if it's not a weapon at all? She pointed toward the energy flows inside the structure. What if it's a machine that's trying to do something, and we just don't understand what that is yet? The idea had apparently never occurred to most of the Coalition researchers. For decades, they had studied the device with one goal: stop it. The humans approached the problem differently. They wanted to understand it. Ward turned to her team. Let's start running experiments. The alien scientists immediately protested. Experiments? One of them exclaimed. Any interference could accelerate the process. Ward shrugged slightly. It could tell us how the system actually works. Without waiting for permission, the humans began preparing their equipment. Small reconnaissance drones were launched from the station and guided toward the outer layers of the Oblivion Engine. Coalition commanders watched nervously as the drones slipped between the enormous metallic segments. The first drone transmitted detailed scans of the machine's interior. Moments later, a violent surge of energy vaporized it instantly. Gasps echoed through the observation chamber. Ward simply nodded. Good, she said. The alien scientists stared at her in disbelief. Good, the Vorlon physicist asked. We learned something, Ward replied. She replayed the final seconds of the drone's recording. The energy spike had originated from a specific section of the machine's structure, a defense system. The engine wasn't just operating. It was protecting itself. More drones followed. Some survived long enough to map portions of the internal network. Others were destroyed by powerful energy discharges. Each failure revealed new details. Hours passed as the humans tested theories, rerouted signals, and deliberately triggered small reactions within the machine. The Coalition observers watched with growing anxiety. The humans were taking risks no other species would dare attempt. But slowly, patterns began to emerge. Energy from the dying star flowed into massive conduits that converged toward the center of the ring structure. There, the power was being redirected into a strange field surrounding a region of distorted spacetime. Dr. Ward studied the readings carefully. Then her expression changed. Stop the simulation, she said quietly. The room fell silent. Ward adjusted the projection to show a wider view of the surrounding sector. What is that? She asked. The Zelnath researcher hesitated. That region has been unstable for centuries, he admitted. A cluster of gravitational anomalies. Ward nodded slowly. And you never considered that this machine might be trying to fix it? The realization spread across the room like a shockwave. The Oblivion Engine wasn't destroying the star. It was harvesting energy. Energy that was being used to stabilize something far more dangerous. Ward ran several quick calculations. The results appeared on the display. A cascade of gravitational collapse simulations. Entire star systems being swallowed by expanding space-time fractures. Ward leaned back in her chair. Well, she said quietly, that's not good. The alien scientists stared at the projection in stunned silence. If this machine fails, the Vorlon physicist whispered, the entire sector could collapse. Ward nodded. And judging by the countdown, she added, glancing at the timer, now showing 12 hours remaining, it's running out of time. The humans had uncovered in a few hours what the galaxy had missed for decades. The Oblivion Engine wasn't a weapon. It was a lifeline. a final safeguard built by the ancient architects to prevent a cosmic disaster. But something had gone wrong, and unless someone fixed it before the countdown reached zero, the galaxy was about to learn what happened when the last defense of an ancient civilization finally failed. The 24-hour miracle. When the truth about the Oblivion Engine became clear, the atmosphere inside the research station changed instantly. Before, the Coalition scientists had been trying to stop the machine. Now, they understood something far more frightening. The engine wasn't the disaster. It was the only thing preventing one. Dr. Elena Ward stood in front of the main holographic display while dozens of alien researchers gathered around her. The projection showed a swirling region of warped spacetime several million kilometers beyond the dying star. The instability looked almost alive, twisting like a wound in reality itself. If that rupture expands, Ward explained, it'll start pulling nearby gravitational fields out of alignment. Stars, planets, everything. The Vorlon physicist finished the thought in a quiet voice. A cascading collapse. Ward nodded. The architects built the engine to stabilize it. The star's energy is being converted into a massive space-time anchor. She pointed at the machine's core systems. But the sequence isn't completing. One of the Kithari engineers leaned closer to the display. What? Ward tapped the console and zoomed into a section of alien code patterns repeating through the system. Because the engine is waiting for something. The room fell silent. A command, Ward said. A manual activation signal. The Zelnath researcher looked stunned. But the architects vanished millions of years ago. Exactly, Ward replied. The machine had been waiting for its creators. And now the countdown was reaching its end. The timer above the display showed 9 hours remaining. Ward turned to her team. Okay, she said. New objective. We don't shut it down. We finish what the architects started. The next few hours became a blur of activity. Human engineers worked alongside alien specialists as they studied the control architecture of the massive machine. The biggest obstacle appeared immediately. The activation command required communication using the architect language. Unfortunately, no species had ever successfully translated it. Fragments of the language existed in ancient ruins across the galaxy, but they were incomplete and inconsistent. Coalition linguists had spent centuries attempting to decode it. The humans studied the data for less than an hour. Then Dr. Ward had an idea. Let's stop trying to translate it, she said. The Vorlon physicist frowned. Then how do we issue the command? Ward turned toward one of the human technicians. Let's teach the system to predict it. Within minutes, the Horizon Runner's onboard artificial intelligence was connected to the station's database of architect symbols. Instead of translating the language, the AI analyzed patterns in the command structures used by the engine itself. It began generating possible phrases that matched the machine's internal logic. Millions of combinations, then billions. Slowly, the AI began narrowing them down. The aliens watched in disbelief. Where they had spent centuries trying to understand the language perfectly, the humans were willing to guess. Carefully, but still guess. 6 hours remained. While the AI worked, another problem demanded attention. The engine's power channels had begun fluctuating. Several conduits inside the massive structure were damaged, preventing the energy flow from stabilizing the space-time rupture. Someone would have to repair them. The Coalition ships were too large to navigate the narrow interior corridors. The humans had brought something smaller. Commander Marcus Hale climbed into the cockpit of a compact human shuttle. The craft looked fragile compared to the massive alien vessels surrounding the station, but it was designed for maneuverability. Ward leaned over the communication console. Marcus, you'll be flying inside a machine that's older than most civilizations, she said. Hale grinned slightly. Sounds like fun. Moments later, the shuttle launched. Coalition observers watched the feed as Hale guided the craft toward the rotating plates of the Oblivion Engine. The gaps between the segments were narrow and constantly shifting. Timing had to be perfect. The shuttle slipped through just as two massive plates rotated past each other. Inside, the engine looked even more intimidating. Towering conduits crackled with energy, filling the interior with blinding flashes of light. Gravitational distortions twisted the shuttle's sensors, making navigation extremely difficult. Hale moved slowly through the labyrinth of machinery. Ward's voice guided him from the station. Power conduit 12 is ahead. We need a bypass installed. Hale maneuvered the shuttle close to the damaged section and released a cluster of automated repair drones. They attached temporary bridge circuits between the broken conduits. Energy surged through the network. Back on the station, the readings improved instantly. That worked, Ward said. But there were more. 3 additional power channels required repairs deeper inside the structure. The shuttle pushed onward. At one point, a violent energy discharge erupted just meters away from the craft. The shockwave sent alarms screaming through the cockpit. Hale fought the controls until the shuttle stabilized again. Coalition commanders watching the feed were stunned. No other species would risk flying inside such a dangerous environment. But the humans continued. One by one, the repairs were completed. Finally, the AI signaled success. Dr. Ward stared at the screen in disbelief. The system had generated a command sequence with a 92% probability of being correct. That's the best we're getting, she said. But there was one final problem. The command couldn't be transmitted remotely. The engine required activation from the central core chamber, and that chamber was located deep within the machine's most dangerous region. Radiation levels were extreme. No drone could survive long enough. Someone would have to go in. The room grew quiet. Then Commander Hale's voice came through the communication channel. "I'm already inside," he said. Ward closed her eyes for a moment. "Of course you are." The shuttle turned toward the center of the massive structure. Outside the station's windows, the Oblivion Engine glowed brighter as the countdown dropped to 2 hours remaining. Across the galaxy, billions of lives depended on what happened next. And the fate of an entire sector now rested on a single human pilot flying through the heart of an ancient alien machine. The species that solves the impossible. Commander Marcus Hale's shuttle drifted deeper into the heart of the Oblivion Engine. Outside the cockpit windows, the interior of the ancient machine stretched in every direction like a metallic canyon filled with lightning. Massive conduits pulsed with blinding arcs of energy, while enormous plates rotated slowly around a glowing central core. Every second inside the structure felt dangerous. Radiation warnings flashed constantly across Hale's console. The gravitational distortions surrounding the engine interfered with navigation systems, forcing him to rely mostly on manual control. Back on the research station, Dr. Elena Ward and the Coalition scientists watched the live feed in tense silence. The countdown hovered in the corner of the display. 1 hour and 12 minutes remaining. Ward leaned closer to the microphone. "Marcus, you're approaching the core corridor. Radiation levels are spiking. You need to reduce speed." Hale eased the shuttle forward. "Copy that," he replied calmly. Ahead of him, the corridor narrowed into a tunnel lined with strange crystalline structures. The walls glowed with pale blue energy, and the space-time distortions grew stronger the closer he moved toward the center. The ship trembled as waves of gravitational pressure rippled through the structure. For a moment, the shuttle's instruments flickered completely offline. On the station, several alien observers gasped. The signal returned seconds later. Hale exhaled slowly. "Okay," he muttered. "That was unpleasant." Ward allowed herself a small smile. "You're still flying. That's what matters." The AI-generated command sequence was already prepared. Once Hale reached the control chamber, he would input the code directly into the architect interface. But there was no guarantee it would work. Even the AI had only predicted the command with 92% certainty. If the guess was wrong, the engine might reject the signal. Or worse, it might shut down completely. The countdown dropped to 50 minutes. Hale guided the shuttle through the final tunnel before the core. Then the chamber appeared. The space opened into an enormous spherical cavity at the center of the machine. Suspended in the middle was a glowing structure of interlocking rings and crystalline panels, the control nexus of the Oblivion Engine. Energy surged through the chamber like a storm. Ward's voice came through the communicator again. "That's it," she said quietly. "The central interface." Hale maneuvered the shuttle toward a small platform built into the structure. The radiation levels were too high for the ship to remain for long. He landed quickly. "Docking now," he said. The cockpit hatch opened with a hiss. For the first time since entering the engine, Hale stepped outside the shuttle. The chamber was silent except for the low hum of unimaginable power flowing through the ancient machine. In front of him stood the architect console. It looked almost organic, smooth surfaces covered in glowing symbols that shifted slowly across its surface. Hale approached carefully. Back on the station, the Coalition scientists watched every movement. The timer dropped to 30 minutes. Ward transmitted the AI-generated command sequence. "Marcus," she said, "this is it." Hale studied the console. The symbols responded as he touched the interface, forming a circular pattern that looked almost like a waiting prompt. He entered the sequence exactly as the AI had calculated. The final symbol glowed brightly beneath his hand. For a moment, nothing happened. The chamber remained silent. Across the research station, dozens of scientists held their breath. Had the command failed? Then the entire structure began to vibrate. At first, the movement was subtle. Then the Oblivion Engine roared to life. Energy erupted through the massive conduits across the machine. Brilliant arcs of light surged along the ring structure as the power flow reorganized itself. Outside the station windows, the engine's metallic plates shifted into a new alignment. The machine had accepted the command. "IT worked," someone shouted inside the observation chamber. The core chamber filled with blinding light as the engine redirected the harvested stellar energy toward the spacetime rupture beyond the star. From the station, the effect was visible even across the vast distance. The twisted region of distorted space began to stabilize. Gravitational waves rippled outward as the rupture slowly collapsed inward on itself. The cosmic wound was healing. Within minutes, the countdown signal disappeared entirely. The system had completed its function. Dr. Ward stared at the display in disbelief. "Time since human arrival?" she asked quietly. One of the technicians checked the log. 23 hours and 42 minutes. The room erupted into cheers from scientists representing dozens of species. An entire sector of the galaxy had just been saved, and it had taken humanity less than a single day. Several hours later, the Emergency Council reconvened on Aurelia Prime. Representatives from across the Coalition gathered once more beneath the massive holographic projection of the Oblivion Engine, now silent and stable. But this time, the atmosphere was very different. The humans stood at the center of the chamber. The Vorlon physicist addressed the assembly first. "For decades we studied the relics of the architects," he said. "We believed their technology was beyond our understanding." He paused before continuing. "Today, a species that joined our alliance only a century ago succeeded where all of us failed." The chamber fell quiet. Another delegate spoke. "How do humans solve this problem so quickly?" Dr. Ward considered the question for a moment. "It's simple," she said. "When you're facing something impossible, you stop assuming you already understand it." She glanced around the chamber. "Most of you were trying to shut the machine down." The holographic image of the engine glowed above them. "We tried to figure out what it was trying to do." The council members exchanged thoughtful looks. Humanity had not saved the galaxy with superior technology. They had done it with curiosity, with creativity, and with a willingness to take risks when everyone else hesitated. The event would soon become known across the stars as the 24-hour miracle. From that day forward, whenever the galaxy encountered a problem that no species could solve, there was always one final question asked in the council chambers. A quiet suggestion spoken with a mixture of hope and awe. "Should we call the humans?"